Welcome to the session, Developing Religious Literacy in the Social Studies Classroom. Please use the QR code or the bit.ly to take attendance for this session. The QR code and the bit.ly will take you to a Google form, and on the Google form you may see multiple sessions. Please select the Developing Religious Literacy in the Social Studies Classroom for MCSS. The dates listed are February 18th and February 19th. Even if you are not taking it on those dates, I do have those dates listed because that is when MCSS officially kicked off, even though you can access these videos for a few months afterwards. Again, please use the QR code or the bit.ly to take attendance for this session. I will put this back up in a moment, just as good practice, what we do in all of our sessions, even though I realize since this is asynchronous, you can pause the video while you are watching it and get the QR code and bit.ly whenever you want. Okay, again, welcome to the session, Developing Religious Literacy in the Social Studies Classroom. My name is Erica Lowry, and I am an ICS educator. ICS, or the Institute for Curriculum Services, is dedicated to improving the quality of K-12 education on Jews, Judaism, Jewish history, and Israel in the United States. We do this by developing standards aligned curricula and providing professional development to teachers around the country. And we believe an excellent education is essential to building a strong civil society where all people can flourish. As you can see in the top corner of your screen, ICS is a nonprofit education initiative. And then in the bottom corner of your screen, you see that we are a member of the Library of Congress Teaching with Primary Sources Consortium. We are very proud of this designation because it does reiterate our dedication to using primary and secondary sources for our resources, which allows students to think critically on historical events and current events. Some items or some other sessions that ICS offers are listed here on this screen. If you are interested in any of these, please contact us at the ICS website. Here is another QR code or website, a web address there that will take you to a Wakelet. If you, for those of you who are unfamiliar with a Wakelet, think of it as a digital filing cabinet. This is where you will find all the resources for this session to use for your further enrichment as well as with your students. It is not necessary for you to go to this right now. You can be successful in the whole session without having the Wakelet and all the other resources available or open to you as we're going through the session. But for those of you who would like that option, here you go with the QR code and the Wakelet site address. I will have this up at the end of the session, so please do not feel like or scramble to get another device or write this down if you do not feel it's necessary to have the resources open as we are going through the session. Okay, we are going to begin, but before we begin, I do want to say that I'm about to minimize myself so you will be able to hear me but not see me. I am not the important part of this, and I do not know where my Zoom screen is going to end up on this screen, and I do not want to hide any of the materials or have it unreadable because my face is there while I am talking to you. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize. Move this up in the corner. Hopefully that will take everything. Okay, our session objectives today, you can read them up on the screen. I'm sure you've had plenty of time to read them. And of course, that last one, leave the session with ready to use resources, is referring to that Wakelet or that digital filing cabinet that I said previously. All right. We will be discussing developing religious literacy, but what exactly is it though? According to the American Academy of Religion, religious literacy means the ability to discern and analyze the fundamental intersections of religion with social, political, and cultural life. The AAR further states that the study of religion from an academic, non-devotional perspective in primary, middle, and secondary school is critical for decreasing religious illiteracy and the bigotry and prejudice it fuels. The Academy also states that a religiously literate person will possess certain traits that you can see up here on the screen. And with these traits, they will have the ability to discern and explore the religious dimensions of political, social, and cultural expressions across time and place. Here is an excerpt from an article called Overcoming Religious Illiteracy, a Cultural Studies Approach, which has been shared with you in this session's resources. The article is an overview by a book by Diane Moore, who is a professor of the practice in religion and education and director of the program in religion and secondary education at Harvard Divinity School. She wrote about overcoming religious illiteracy, and she breaks down the why and how to do so in these three premises. Premise one, understanding that there exists a widespread illiteracy about religion that spans the globe. Premise two, an urgent consequence of religious illiteracy that is often fuels prejudice and antagonism, thereby hindering efforts aimed at promoting respectful pluralism, peaceful coexistence, and cooperative endeavors in local, national, and global arenas. And premise three, it is possible to diminish religious illiteracy by teaching about religion from a non-sectarian perspective in primary and secondary schools. In her third premise, Ms. Moore explains that education is a key component in combating religious intolerance and improving religious literacy. In fact, in 2014, the National Council for the Social Studies also recognized the need for studying about religion in the public school classroom through its position statement on teaching religion and stating that religious literacy is essential for understanding the role of religion in public life, negotiating differences in the public square, and forging public policies that serve the common good. And they state that only through learning about religions and beliefs will young people be adequately prepared for citizenship in a religiously diverse society and world. Okay. The why for developing religious literacy in the classroom. Religious intolerance is a fact of life here in the United States and around the world. These headlines highlight anti-religious attacks, especially on houses of worship, places synonymous with safety, peace, and reflection. Because of this growing trend of intolerance, we designed this curriculum to provide teachers with the validation and evidence for teaching about world religions in the classroom, as well as provide a springboard for a discussion with students about what exactly religious intolerance is and the very real negative effects it has in their own world. One point of evidence and validation is that it has been over 50 years since the Supreme Court stated that the study of religions, distinguished from religious indoctrination, is an important part of a good education. We will explore that ruling later on in the session. Data shows that anti-Muslim attacks have surpassed the 2001 levels. Anti-Sikh sentiments have surged, and there's a general increase in xenophobia. Underscoring that information is this timeline of attacks on houses of worship between 2009 and 2019. This resource is just one way to illustrate the students this growing trend of religious intolerance that is spreading across the country and can provide a springboard for conversation on this topic. On the screen, you will see a sign with the statement, "An injury to one is an injury to all." Please tell me how you interpret the message on this sign. What does this statement mean to you? Since this is an asynchronous session, please think to yourself for 15 seconds about what this statement means to you. This statement is important because we know that violence is never directed at just one group because hate doesn't exist in a vacuum. Ignorance can easily lend itself to oppression and violence, so it's important to remember that an injury to one group is a concern for all. So, what exactly is contributing to this trend of religious intolerance? According to Adama Ding, the United Nations Special Advisor on the Prevention of Genocide, it's hate speech, and that hate speech is a component for violence. In this 2019 address that we're about to watch, he shares that through the bigotry and prejudice it fuels, hate speech poses a real danger to our students' lives. After we watch this video, we will talk or think about what impacted you the most.
We all have to remember that hate crimes is preceded by hate speech. We all have to remember that the genocide of the Tutsis in Rwanda started with hate speech. The Holocaust did not start with the gas chambers. It started long before with hate speech. What we have been seeing in Myanmar against the Rohingya population started also with hate speech. And today, what we are witnessing around this world, with the rise of extremists, be it in Europe, be it in Asia, everywhere, when we see the growing number of neo-Nazi group, neo-fascist group, when we see the way migrants and refugees are being vilified, we need therefore to make every effort to address this hate speech. We have to bear in mind that words kill. Words kill as bullets. And that is why we need to make every effort to invest on education, to invest on the youth, so that the next generation will understand the importance of living peacefully together. We need to make every effort so that the attacks like the one we have witnessed in Sri Lanka, when churches were attacked, the one we witnessed in New Zealand, what we saw in Pittsburgh, all this has to stop. And to stop it, we need to invest more on mobilizing the youth. We need to use the verb to become a tool for peace, a tool for love, a tool for increasing social cohesion, harmony in our world, instead of being a tool for committing genocide, crimes against humanity.
Okay, so what role do you think educators have in preventing hate speech in our schools and classrooms? Please take 10 seconds to think about an answer to that question.
We all have to remember.
So how did we get here? What is the cause for this increased trend of religious intolerance? Experts say that a lack of education about world religions, or what is termed religious literacy, seems to be a key factor. Studies show that most Americans don't know very much about world religions or even their own faiths. Take a look at these findings from a recent Pew study on religion and public life that are located on the screen. What do you know about religion? You can take this quiz that is from the Pew Research. The link to the quiz is located in the Wakelet that has already been provided for you and will be provided for you again at the end of the session. The how. We've talked a lot about the importance of why to teach about world religions in the classroom, but we haven't touched on how. Teaching about religion isn't easy. The how. We help our students to gather and evaluate information and ideas that lead to new understanding. We help our students see the value in studying religion as part of being a global citizen. It's important to remember that in a classroom setting, it is about studying people and trying to understand what they believe, how they act, and the dynamics of the communities in which they belong. At this time, you can take a moment to explore the role religion plays in some of our country's key foundational and constitutional documents, and if the statements within those documents reflect an attitude about religion or a statement of governmental policy. I'm going to click on a PDF resource that, of course, is included in the Wakelet at the end. And I am scrolling up, so if this gives you a headache, please look away for a moment, but I am trying to do slowly. And these are those foundational and constitutional documents that we provide that you and your students can explore and the role of religion within these documents. And we give you some key questions for you and or your students to think about as well. Okay, I'm going to scroll back up to the top of this document and go back to the slides. The C3 document that you've been given explains the 1963 Supreme Court ruling and further and provides the guidelines for educators to facilitate meaning, constitutional classroom dialogue grounded in the content knowledge. Here are those. And here's a question that you can ask yourself right now. Does the portion you marked, which is part of the activity from those PDFs, if you're coming back from looking at that PDF and the activity from it, okay, is it a real religious attitude or a perspective? Or is it a statement of policy about the role of religion in society? Okay. Again, using primary source documents allow your students to think critically about historical events as well as as well as current events. These are the C3 supplements guidelines as set forth by NCSS, the National Council for the Social Studies, and the United States Department of Education for teaching about religion. It is academic, not devotional. Teaching about religion is for awareness, not acceptance. It's about the study of it, not the practice. It is to expose, not impose. Teaching about religion educates. It does not promote or denigrate. And teaching about religion informs. It does not seek to conform. Okay, using the guidelines, okay, do these case studies located on your screen follow the C3 framework's guidelines for teaching about religion? I will give you 2 minutes to read over these 3 case studies and decide whether or not they follow the C3 framework's guidelines for teaching about religion. Again, you will have about 2.5 minutes remaining. Okay, continuing on with these 4 additional case studies. Do these 4 case studies that are up on the screen follow the C3 framework's guidelines for teaching about religion? And we offer these additional case studies because we know that practice builds that foundation that students need for understanding. You will have 3 minutes to review each of these case studies. Okay, as we wrap up those 3 minutes, hopefully you were able to read through each case study and look at the guidelines and place a check mark or an X next to any of the guidelines that they did or did not follow. And of course, an X next to any means that the case study does not follow the guidelines and should not be completed in the classroom. The how. Continuing with the how, students may need the basics of what religion is. All of these images depict religion in one way or the other. What ties them together? What do they have in common? Hopefully you were able to think quietly to yourself, or maybe you even called out loud what you thought they had in common and what tied them together. According to MCSS's C3 supplement on teaching religion, these 3 B's are the 3 core features of what religion is about. Belief can be related to a deity or deities, or it can be about truths that a community holds about human nature. Behavior includes practices and rituals that can range from prayer and dietary rules to engaging in charitable acts. Belonging is about community. Since ancient times, what we call religion has created a sense of communal identity and being a part of something larger than oneself. Most religions contain aspects of all 3 core features. I'm sure it goes without saying, but teachers must be sensitive to the religious convictions of their students and of those students who have no religious affiliation at all. Teachers help students become aware of the diversity within every tradition by avoiding generalizations, using instead attributions such as some, many, most, etc. Avoid the pitfall of asking a student of a particular religious background to explain or represent their religion because it can make students uncomfortable and should be avoided. They may feel that they have token status, the token of that religion in the room. One way for teaching, one way of the how and teaching just basic facts about religion is having students create a virtual museum where you, the teacher, can provide the facts, and then students can create a virtual museum about an individual or a multitude of religions to show their understanding about these facts. MCSS claims that schools have a civic and educational responsibility to include robust study about religions in the social studies curriculum. Okay, this is using Google Slides, right? And this continued, this is the second slide in that virtual, the one you just saw was a title slide. Okay, students can add room in the museums or galleries in the museums. With each new tradition, students can add an additional room or gallery, or each room or gallery can be an additional or can be its own religion. And then inside that, you can have more spaces or walls for the different facts that you have given your students about those religions. An additional example is using a thing link. Here, students can take the sights and sounds of a synagogue during a virtual tour. I'm going to click on this now. And you can see the little light bulbs. And in each light bulb talks about the different aspects of the place of worship. Okay, you can take a moment yourself if you have access to the resources to look through the thing link, and you can pause this, or however, I am going to return to the slide deck. One last example before we end. Right? You can make, like I said before, they can just make the interactive rooms. Okay, and they can incorporate about certain holidays, and you can see there images, sounds, videos. This is what they can do inside those rooms, or you can have them just focus on one specific thing, and they can make a museum walk, a gallery walk, just for that specific aspect of a religion that you have given them, whether it is just focused on one religion, or say the holiday is the focus, and they put all sorts of different religious examples from different religions in there. Our time together has come to a close. Thank you for your participation. On the screen is a QR code and a bit.ly link that will allow you to access the ICS resources that are offered at no cost. I'm going to give you a few seconds for those of you who would like to access those resources who have not previously done so. Please use the QR code or the Wakelet address, that site address there. Oops, I did not mean to do that yet. Okay, and you can just scroll through the Wakelet and you can see that you have access to all of the resources that you saw in this session. While you are doing that, I do want to let you know on the next slide, you will be given another bit.ly and QR code, which I accidentally clicked to already. And if you would, please go ahead and complete the evaluation of this session. I will click there in a moment if you are still looking through your Wakelet. If you have any questions about the resources that you are looking at, please again, use the ICS website to contact us and ask us your questions for clarification. Okay, I am going to click over to that next slide, which is the evaluation slide. This is very important to myself as well as the other ICS educators. If you ever have the opportunity to have a session that they give, we absolutely look at all the evaluations and feedback that is given on this Google form, which that QR code and that bit.ly address will take you to another Google form. And again, it will have this session listed on that Google form. Please click on that session for MCSS, Developing Religious Literacy in the Social Studies Classroom. And my name is up there, Erica Lowry. I am your ICS educator for this session. And like I said, we do read all of the feedback in the evaluation. I always want to improve myself, the delivery, how I facilitate, as well as the session itself. Of course, this was unique, this session being asynchronous. It is much more interactive, and when it is synchronous or when we are in person, through using the chat or unmuting, or if I was to see you in person, there would be discussion and questions, and we would talk about all the different things that you saw in this session. Okay. I am about to end, so if you have not done it already, please go ahead and use the QR code or write down the bit.ly so you can access the evaluation for this session. I encourage you to go back through the video to those parts that you will be using in your classroom to see how we presented them with what it is there on the Wakelet. And of course, you have access to this recording for the next few months. Hopefully that was enough time for you to use this QR code and or the bit.ly to access that Google evaluation form, so I can read your feedback about this session. I am going to end our time together here. Again, thank you very much, and I hope you learned from our session today. Bye-bye.